The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated. We are kicking things off today with this incredibly powerful quote from Mahatma Gandhi because, well, it immediately sets the stakes for what we're about to explore. When we think about human progress, we almost always think about technology, right? Or the economy. But Gandhi is asking us to look at something much deeper: empathy. I want you to keep this thought firmly in the back of your mind because it is literally the core of the story we're about to unpack today.
Welcome, everyone. I am so thrilled to have you here for this explainer. Today, we're diving into a deeply moving, tragic, yet undeniably gorgeous poem from the Class 10 English syllabus. It's called To a Pair of Sarus Cranes. It was written by Manmohan Singh. And actually, let me clarify right off the bat. This is the contemporary poet and former Indian Administrative Service officer, not the former Prime Minister. In this poem, which is pulled from his collection Village Poems, Singh uses this completely devastating encounter between humans and nature to hold a mirror right up to our own humanity.
Okay, let's dive right into our roadmap for this explainer. We'll be looking at 1. The majestic Sarus cranes. 2. Tragedy stripes the horizon. 3. Morse code of sorrow. 4. Decoding the poetic devices. And finally, 5. Beyond human love.
Section 1. The majestic Sarus cranes, biological reality.
Before we can really appreciate the poetry itself, we absolutely have to understand the biological and scientific reality of these incredible birds. To ground the poem, our source material points us to the notes of Alan Octavian Hume. He was a famous ornithologist who wrote about these birds way back in 1881 in his book, The Game Birds of India, Burma, and Ceylon. Hume observed that Sarus cranes are practically the ultimate symbol of marital fidelity. They form these lifelong, completely monogamous pairs. When one mate is killed, the surviving bird exhibits just this immense, overwhelming grief. They'll actually stay right around the spot where their partner died, calling out constantly. Hume even noted that the widowed bird will often literally pine away and die of a broken heart. That biological fact right there, that is the emotional engine driving our entire poem.
Section 2. Tragedy strikes a horizon, a violent interruption.
The poem opens with this scene of absolute serenity, and then it is shattered in a single instant. The text reads, "The male was shot as he necked to pull the reluctant sun out from the rim of horizon." Picture this in your mind. It's sunrise. The male crane is stretching its long, elegant neck straight up. The poet uses this gorgeous hyperbole, right? Imagining the bird is literally trying to pull the sun up from the edge of the horizon. And notice how the sun is described as reluctant. It's personified, almost like it doesn't want to rise, like it somehow knows the tragedy that's about to happen. Right at this moment of pure, majestic pride, a hunter's gunshot ends his life.
Now, what's really interesting here is the stark visual contrast the poet builds for us. On one side, we've got this majestic imagery of the bird, its proud neck, its movements of grace. Beautiful, right? But on the other side, we get hit with the brutal, crude reality of the hunters. The text says the dead bird was picked up hands and jaws, which means they're treating this creature the way a scavenger would. That proud neck was humbled, completely stripped of its dignity, and tossed into a coarse washing bag to lie there like dirty linen. The hunters don't see a magnificent creature at all. They just see a piece of meat. It so perfectly highlights the complete callousness and really the moral emptiness of the killers.
Section 3. Morse code of sorrow, the female's grief.
So the hunters leave, but the story is far from over. The focus now shifts entirely to the surviving female crane. To really grasp the brilliant imagery the poet uses next, we need a quick definition. Morse code is a symbolic signaling language invented by Samuel Morse back in the 1830s. Basically, it uses a series of dots, short sounds or flashes, and dashes, which are longer signals, to transmit urgent messages across vast distances. Keep that idea in your head, an urgent, coded message of dots and dashes.
The female crane returns to the scene of the death. She's crying out, and the poet tells us her grief inscribed its intensity in dots and pits like the Morse code of birds' sorrow transmitted to the air. Just let that sink in for a second. Her short and long cries of absolute despair are being compared to Morse code. She is desperately transmitting her sorrow, her trauma, out into the universe. It takes this abstract feeling of grief and turns it into something so deeply palpable and structured. You can almost literally hear the rhythmic, desperate beeps of a distress signal filling the air.
And then she does something that absolutely breaks your heart. She walks over to the exact spot where he was killed. With her beak, she kisses a few of his remaining feathers. She picks up the ones the wind hadn't blown away, and then
She sits on those blood-stained feathers trying to hatch them into a toddling chick. I mean, wow, this is the ultimate desperate act. It shows her absolute denial of his death. She's relying completely on her maternal instinct, vainly trying to bring her mate back to life from nothing but his ruined feathers. It's just a devastating portrait of grief making a creature lose its senses entirely, all out of love.
This intense grieving process eventually takes its toll. The poem tells us, a wave of the seas she had never seen came to her from far away and carried her to him. Now, sarus cranes live in wetlands, not by the ocean, so this isn't a literal wave, it's a powerful metaphor. This unseen wave represents the overwhelming force of sorrow or even death itself. She is so completely consumed by her grief that she forgets to eat or drink, her life force simply drains away, and this metaphorical wave finally sweeps her way to be reunited with her mate in death.
Section 4. Decoding the poetic devices. Literary tools used.
For all of focus learners out there who need to consolidate this for exams, mapping this out brilliantly illustrates the actual mechanics of the poem. First up, we've got personification and hyperbole in the first stanza. The reluctant sun personifies the sky as hesitant to witness the murder, while the bird stretching to pull the sun is hyperbole that really emphasizes his majestic effort. Then we get a powerful simile. Tossing the majestic bird like dirty linen into a bag perfectly highlights the hunter's total lack of respect. Another simile compares her cries to the Morse code of bird's sorrow, which makes her grief feel so urgent and communicative. And finally, the metaphor of the wave of the seas beautifully captures that overwhelming force of death that ultimately claims her.
Section 5. Beyond Human Love. The Ultimate Message.
This brings us to the poem's profound ultimate resolution. In the closing lines, the poet states, "She went away beyond Hume's words, beyond the legends and fables of human love." The poet is essentially saying that the sacrifice of this female crane eclipses everything. It goes way beyond Alan Octavian Hume's dry scientific observations. But more importantly, it goes beyond all the greatest human legends and fables of romance we tell each other, the Romeo and Juliet type stories. The poet is suggesting that the devotion of this animal is actually purer, deeper, and far more profound than human love.
So, I want to leave you with this ethical mirror to reflect on. We started with Gandhi saying our moral progress is judged by how we treat animals. This poem asks us a huge question. Is the fundamental experience of deep grief and transcendent love uniquely human? Or does the sacrifice of the sarus crane prove that these deep emotions transcend our species entirely? The hunters, they just saw a bird as a piece of dirty linen, but the poet showed us a creature capable of a love that rivals our greatest human legends. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking yourselves these tough questions, and I will see you next time.